Hello, this is R Rats with Team 4545 League, analyzing the game between Pawn Pusher 3 and Nursey. This game was played in team event number 53, second round in the under 1600 section. Let's have a look. Okay, now the Ponziani opening. This is a great way to break a lot of Black's opening preparation. Everything he planned for Bishop C4, Bishop B5, and D4 is out the window. But you got to know the Ponziani too, from both sides. And I'm not sure how long this stays booked. This is kind of an interesting position with the pawns all meeting like that in the center of the board. There's plenty of pawn captures to consider. I'm not going to consider them. That's for you guys that study the Ponziani. But finally there's an exchange made, and the center rapidly disappears. And okay, so now at this point, White commits his first mistake. Now, I'm just trying to illustrate a point here. Let me show you. Okay, what White needs to do is complete his development. Now, I'll just give you a sample move. Okay, knight D2. Okay, knight D2. Now, when Black castles, now White can gain a tempo on the queen. The queen has to move. Okay, and then White moves his bishop. And then both sides will have everything out. The queen will be out. The rooks and kings will match. Both knights are out, except it's Black's move. So Black is a half tempo ahead. And actually, there's more to this position. Knight C4 kind of puts Black in a little bit of a quandary because he's got to hold on to D7. But that's not important. I'm not trying to show the tactics. I'm just trying to demonstrate that White is a half a tempo behind. He's given the advantage of the first move away to Black. So what Black could do is just play knight B6 and then castle. That should be fine. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that what White did just seems to get himself in a bad game, and White's playing quickly. He's not really taking adequate time to consider candidate moves. Black played very quickly as well this opening, and it seems to me like White is just playing for the team. A draw will clinch the match, and he seems like he's playing for a draw, but this is not the best way to play for a draw. The best way to play for a draw is from a position of strength, so that if anyone wants to draw, it's your opponent, because he's got the worst game. But Black is already slightly better, just simply because of that tempo I showed you, and now it's two tempos because White's taken time moving the queen to D4. But White's intention was to do this and trade queens, but White doesn't have to worry about the Black queen. It's not going to be checkmating White or generating any kind of attack that White need worry about. But anyway, that's what White wanted, but seems like in this position, knight B4 was just screaming to be played. It just got immediate threats on C2, so Black didn't see it, and with his development advantage, he can definitely get away with it. But anyway, he didn't do it. So let's see, how many seconds did Black? He spent 41 seconds on it because his clock went up by 4 seconds. But knight B4 clearly is better. Okay, and now the absence of the White pieces in the center of the board is showing. White's got all these guys sitting at home, and Black's all ready to go. Now what White needed to play here was B3. The point being that C4 is just a little weak, and B3 is a fine move. It secures the pawns. It gets those pawns on the opposite color of White's bishop, which is good for White. But knight C3 just seems to run into some trouble because Black has this fine move. And Nimzovich always said, if you're going to make exchanges that improve the position of your pieces, and that's exactly what this does. Now White's got a problem. This is under attack, and he's threatened with double pawns. So the only way to avoid that is either to move the knight to D2, which just seems a little awkward because you're shutting your bishop in, or make the exchange on E5. And it's something White should have visualized this position when he was playing his opening. So he took on E5, and now Black really has a fine game. For the moment, he's threatening to just disrupt those White pawns, double them, cripple them, and see what he can get after that. Okay, so for instance, bishop takes, that's White's move, but the threat is bishop takes, pawn takes, and then stick a rook on E8, and you're going to get into E2 next. White can't really stop you from getting in there. He can just start defending the position after you do get in there. But anyway, White played here, which is fine. And now white's almost caught back up in development. Notice how kings and rooks match. Both sides have bishop and knight out. Then it's black's move. So it's about the position's about even. But I kind of like black a little bit better here, simply because his pieces are a little better poised. The rook on d8 is attacking, and the bishop on e5 is attacking. They're both on pieces. And here probably white should have just continued about his way with rook fe1. But this next move just seems to be a total waste, because you'll see black just starts chasing it. And I think taking here is not correct. You're voluntarily giving up the bishop pair, and or not the bishop pair, but the bishop for knight. And I've preached about one famous ending in a lot of my videos. It's in my library. Game number 158, Stoltz and Cashden, The Hague, 1928. Where Cashden with the bishop proved that the bishop beats the knight. And the way to do it is use your king and bishop to infiltrate into one side of the board and force the pawns to advance to where one of them becomes weak, and you go win it, and then you convert the ending one pawn ahead. Now, we're a long way from that, but I know Pawn Pusher 3 is aware of this ending, and he kind of tried to avoid it here. But what he needs to do actually right now is actually go into it, because by giving up the bishop pair, he's pretty much forced, or not the bishop pair, just giving up the bishop for knight, he's pretty much forced to go into that ending. And let me just back up. That was a mistake. What he needs to do is just play rook takes d8, okay? Now black will retake, and then white plays rook d1. And if rook takes, knight takes, now white is in that ending. Now theoretically this is winning for black, but black has to know how to win it. White does have great drawing chances, and those knights can get very, very annoying. So who knows? This was white's best practical chance to make black prove he knows how to win that, because what he gets into is just worse. But anyway, white played knight d5, and the problem with that is that it just splits up the pawns. Now white has two weaknesses, so in my online lesson program I talk about the principle of two weaknesses, and now immediately white has them. Weak pawns on a2 and c4. Black can win this because of those two weaknesses, okay? And so instead of making the bishop prove it can beat the knight, now it's relatively easy for the bishop to beat the rook, to beat the knight, or a rook and bishop to beat the knight, because white's messed up his pawns. And at this stage, white just throws the game away, but black doesn't understand. Now, here's my question. Here's what black to play and do the best he can. Pause the video. Okay, you've resumed the video. How does black proceed? Well, the simple move is rook takes check. That forces here. And now bishop e5, trapping the knight. How does the knight get out? Well, there's only one way through d6. You've got to stop and play here, right? And then black just moves the king, and the knight comes here. You take, and black's going to win that pawn and have an easy win. And the theme black missed was this bishop control dominating that knight. And this happened in another video where one side missed that, just putting the knight on the side of the board and winning the game. And the player ended up losing the game because he didn't trap the knight. I put all these things on my videos. It's up to you guys to watch them. If you don't see them, you won't learn what's in there. There's a lot of useful stuff in all my Team 45 League videos. So if you see this one and haven't seen them all, go look at some more. You'll like what you see. Okay, so what black played was not a bad move, but it's just not winning like the other move was. And it goes back to what I explained in my online lesson program, that players around 1600, half their moves are mistakes. Now, they're not necessarily gross blunders, but they're second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth best. The second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth best moves. And in this case, rook d2 is fine. It's a decent move. It preserves an advantage, and you're still threatening to play bishop e5 here, but the continuation was just staring in the face, and black has all the time on his clock to find that. And so both sides are at fault here because they both played quickly the whole game, and they can't blame that on anybody but except themselves, okay? Because no one's making a move. Nobody. Okay, now the problem is now, like I say, white had these two weaknesses, and one of them's gone. So now white still has two weaknesses. One is he's down a pawn. The other one is his weak pawn on c4. So black has a winning game right now. So it would have been better for white to go into the knight versus bishop ending. Now what should white strive for here if he's trying to hold for a draw? Well, you try to go into a rook ending, because a lot of rook endings, a pawn down, become draws. Now can he get there? That's the question. And I don't know, bishop d4, just eyeballing the idea being take and take here. All kinds of possibilities. I don't know why he went to d2, but it shouldn't really matter. Black can just almost win this at his leisure. Now he starts getting the king a little better placed and decides to secure his pawns a little better before undergoing some operations. And white's got this active king, but it's not doing him any good, so he just goes back. And I think it's at this point white once again gives black a golden opportunity. Pause the video, black to play and do the best he can. Have you resumed it? How does black continue here? It's simple. Okay, rook takes rook. Forces this, right? Bishop takes. Now what does that force? You have two ways to recapture, but it doesn't matter. Black's winning. Black's dead one. White can't do a thing here. He's just dead one. Okay, king up, king here. Oops. A pawn just, hello, it just runs. So, I did hit revert. Oh, wrong one. Okay, so white's making a mistake allowing that ending, and black's making a mistake by declining that ending. So, you guys, you got to take your time. They did take their time a little bit here and there, but more or less, fast play was the norm. Okay, so they just kind of maneuver around a little bit, and they both made some good moves. They made some very good moves. They found key moves that they had to play when they had to play them, and that's one of them. That's a great move. It just starts splitting up the pawns and gives white a little glimmer of hope, and that's probably a mistake. He probably needed to stop and check here again. But anyway, black now finds a good continuation. He takes, forcing this, and now checks, and picks up a second pawn. So now black's two pawns up. What does white do? Well, white does play this okay. He does find some continuations. Okay, now he's on that pawn, and see, so white's done okay. Now he's getting very close to maybe reaching a drawn position where you can draw a pawn down. And that's exactly what's going to happen here. Black, I'm not going to show you the black wins. I'm sure black knows by now. But that was at rook g3 was just terrible. It just gets white's right back in it. And game's pretty much drawn. You can draw by rook h1 or h8. Either one seems to work. And he could have checked instead of coming back, but this is fine. Now at this point, white proceeds to start throwing the game away. The game is drawn. Okay, all white needs to do here is play king c3, and doesn't matter what black does, this game's a draw. Okay, it's real simple. King c3. How is black going to proceed? For the moment, his king is shut off. He can't get to the pawn, right? And this pawn is countered by the fact that this pawn will be threatening to run at some point. You can play with this all you want. The game's a draw. But what happens is white starts playing quick. He just goes over here, and he starts checking again, and then he checks again, and he checks on the wrong square, and suddenly the black king is, maybe it's here, somewhere in here, the black missed a win. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, probably right here. I don't know. But instead of getting the king to c3, he just gave black all kinds of winning chances, and it's fast play is causing it to happen. But I guess somewhere again, black messed it up, and the game ends up in a drawn position. And here it is where it does become a draw. You have to play here, otherwise rook d1. And then white just sacrifices his rook, and black's king isn't close enough to help the rook to stop the pawn, so it's just a matter of advancing the king and pawn up one step at a time, and finally they reach a drawn game. So they did take their time sometime. They did play some good moves, but they didn't take enough time because both sides were allowing each other every opportunity they wanted. So my advice is slow down. I've said that all along. Slow down your game. But still, it was a good fighting game. I wish both players good luck in their next games, and I thank all of you for watching and for your time, and we'll see you soon. Take care.